recording button. And now I am to upload my screen. Do you guys see the PowerPoint slide?
Yes, sir. Yes.
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 And everybody is okay with my voice? If everybody can say yes quickly or no?
Yes.
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 Perfect.
Good.
Perfect. Good. So my voice is reaching clearly and you can see the PowerPoint. Sorry, I'm having a bit of a cough, but we will go from there. So the topic of today's presentation is connecting art with spirituality and mental health. We, in the general theme of the course, of course, arts and health. So I have chosen this specific area because of some experiences from my own society and some experiences when I was working in a psychiatry ward of a hospital in Pakistan as a medical doctor. So that kind of those experiences gave me some different insight into the world of psychiatric patients and how they see things and how they behave and how their outlets are. So that was the background that I thought that I want to share with you, and I want to learn myself also and see that what materials are available and how currently the research is understanding these connections between art, spirituality, and mental health. So first of all, of course, the topic you can see in the slide, but also you see this very strange looking picture. Now this picture shows some kind of a figure, and if one asks many people, maybe some of those people will call it more like an evil kind of a figure. It has horns, it has this bit of intimidating look, so it looks kind of devilish or evilish kind of character. And also the background, the other stuff that are there in this painting. So there is some kind of figure with wings. Usually we associate wings with angels or also with the devils. So we also see some alien looking skeleton thing, again in a bit evil side of symbolism. And then we see some fire or smoke coming out from ground. So all the elements that I'm seeing in this painting, they are maybe clicking in my head as representing some kind of evil or some kind of devil feature. Again, this concept of evil and devil is coming to us, of course, primarily and predominantly from our religious side. So this painting we are going to talk about more in the coming slides. There is a specific reason why I chose to put this painting here. But it is a painting, it comes under the category of arts, but then these symbolisms, these messages, these impressions, or even the feelings that I'm getting after looking at this picture. So we need to discuss that, what is happening, and then more importantly for today's class, who has made this painting, why this painting was made by that person, what that person wanted to tell us about that. Or did he wanted to tell us something about, or was it just his own thing to come up with this painting? Was it serving a purpose for himself and not for anybody else? So there are lots of possibilities and lots of questions that one can ask after looking at a painting. Now it can be this painting, and of course similar observations and questions can be asked about so many different types of paintings and also other forms of arts. What are the purposes? What are the justifications? What are the questions? What are the answers? What are the motives behind creating those paintings? If there is some symbolism involved, what does it actually mean? What is the artist? What is the painter? What is the musician? What is the dancer? What are they trying to convey? Is it something very personal that they are trying to convey to us, or is it something that they are seeing in their life that they are reflecting in the form of that art? Is it something that is serving a purpose for themselves in the form of an outlet, or is it something that makes them feel at peace? Is it something that is making them happy? Is it something that is making them calm? Is it a self-meditation kind of a process that they are doing this art, whatever they're doing? Again, lots of different types of art. So in this presentation, I will bring up some different types of arts, but more focus is painting. Maybe I myself like to watch paintings and see paintings, and I hope that I myself could have done some painting at some point, but unfortunately, I don't have the talent for that. But at some level, most of the people do relate to and admire paintings to some extent. And then this specific kind of art comes back in specific, solid, strong connection with the painters themselves. So this line we are going to be exploring today. Are we okay so far?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Anybody wants to add something about this painting? What do you feel on seeing this painting? What I told you my interpretation, what my mind sees it, but do you have some different interpretation? Or what are your comments on this painting? What do you feel when you see this painting? Would you like to hang it in your bedroom in the night time? Would you like to put it in some living room space, or will it be okay if you just see it in some museum from a distance and then walk away to the next painting? What do you feel? Is it giving you a positive vibe, a negative vibe, fear, some other kind of emotion?
For me, it's a little scary.
For you, what?
Make me feel scary.
Scared. So that is the emotion that is coming to you, somewhat similar to what I am experiencing. And I think that many of you, or maybe even most of you, are feeling the same vibe, same negative vibe, same overpowering negative vibe from this picture. So this is the first point of this whole course and this lecture specifically, that art has effect on us. Art is not simply that we just watch it and able to move away all the time, but many a times when we see any form of art, it stays with us. It affects some kind of connection on us. It affects some kind of force on us, some influence on us. It generates thoughts and processes in our minds. Now, this is interesting that I said that it generates some kind of effect on our mind, some kind of influence, or even a thought process in our mind. We may get a very peaceful vibe from it. We may feel smiling after seeing a happy piece of painting or art. Our mood gets lifted up. Our brain feels cheerful. We become a bit more of a jolly that day. We feel like, this was good, I enjoyed this. And opposite, of course, that an art like this, what we are seeing on this slide, can be very traumatic to people. Some people may be able to ignore it and push it under the carpet and move on in their day. But some people may be a bit more sensitive and it stucks a chord in their minds. It's the vibe, the meaning, the feeling stays with them for a few hours, few days, few months. Some people even start having things in their dreams based on a little encounter with an art piece. It is quite possible that some of you will be coming up, hopefully not, but some of you may be coming up with something from this lecture, some painting like this painting. And you may wake up because of this feeling of nastiness, this feeling of negative emotion. It stuck, it remained in your conscious and unconscious and creeped into your dreams. So all these little everyday things, they are telling again and again the same point, that art and our brain and our nature, our personalities, our thought processes, they are all connected, they are all in a chain, they are all in sync. Some people more so than the others, but the link still exists. Now, we all know that displaying art in your home makes it look nicer, right? Almost all of us have some photographs, some paintings in our living rooms, in our bedrooms, in our houses, outside, inside, because it makes our house, our place looks nicer, creates a more welcoming environment. But why it has this effect, people don't always realize it, but this displaying art in their homes has a connection with the brain and improving the mental health in several ways. But now we are scientists, right? We cannot just believe this, that, oh, we are feeling this, so it must be this. We are highly qualified professionals. We are seeking higher health education. We are scientists and researchers. We are trained to ask questions. How? How does this actually happen? Saying this is simple, that this thing is connected to this thing. But then how this connection is happening? What is the mechanism? What are the theories? Now the 4 pathways, how viewing art transforms your mental and spiritual health. 4 pathways that I got to find from material, from reading and learning myself. So the 4 pathways, first is it helps us process our emotions. Now, we all have a special part of our brain that is responsible for processing these emotions and memories connected to the visual art, like paintings. We call this part visual association cortex, and this is exactly what it does. When we look at certain pieces of art like paintings or photographs, our visual association cortex, this little part of brain, it triggers everything associated with what we are looking at, such as colors, shapes, textures. So they all get processed. Now this helps us to process the emotion behind the picture and make sense out of how it makes us feel, which can help us process our own related emotions. For example, this painting that we just saw and many others, they resonate with us. If we are feeling loss and grief, those people who are, for example, grieving of something in their life, so they feel drawn to that sad nature of the arts. These images encourage the brain to engage with and process those feelings. So a sad feeling in your day makes you connect with the sad feeling vibe of the paintings. And this makes it process your sad feelings. Now this is healthy. Instead of you keeping up, bottling up your sad feelings and emotions and grief inside you. Now here you have an outlet that you are connecting it with this sad vibe in some painting. And this association is letting you process your sad emotions. Now this is positive. Same is true of paintings that evoke feelings of anger. If it connects with our mood, our vibe, it gives us kind of an outlet for processing our emotions. And all these things are starting from the smaller level of these colors, these little things. Visual association cortex. Now the other pathway is that it reduces stress and anxiety. How? Now this has been explored by many researchers that it does have a reducing role in the feelings of stress and anxiety. Now this is because the mental processes which are used when viewing art are very similar to what happens when people are meditating. Very similar process. Just like we meditate and it gives us calm and it gives us peace. Similarly, these mental processes that are being used by looking at art, same thing is happening. So the net result is also the same, feeling of peace, feeling of calm, if the subject of the art allows that. And you guys have seen in your life how much meditation has picked up, especially in these modern times, when the general anxieties in the society, when the general routines of the society have become too fatigued. Our lives, each and every one of us is so busy, so occupied, so fatigued, so tired, so exhausted. We have all certain tasks, education, jobs, running our daily lives is not easy. So many of us have come to use this role of meditation in our lives. We have seen how many yoga schools are everywhere. We have seen how much of these exercises-based meditations are popping up. We have seen how much of this healing centers are opening up. Again, because we need this meditation role. So the same thing that you are getting from the yoga center meditation, you are also able to get it from simply getting yourself into viewing arts, following arts, because the mechanism is triggering the same processes and the end result is calmness. Huge role of art. So mentally transporting yourself into a painting makes you more relaxed. It slows down your breathing rate. It has been noted by researchers repeatedly that when you are doing an activity that you are really into, you really enjoying, your physical indicators also start reflecting that. Isn't it true? For example, people who recite Bible and they are really into Bible, they feel so calm when they are reading Bible. Their blood pressure will drop. Their pulse rate will become a bit more nicer. Their breathing will become more relaxed. Same for offering prayer of any religion. Same role, peace, meditation role. Some people are more into charity as their religion. So some people get that meditation, that calming effect from that charity. They do it and they feel good. They get this thing they call inner happiness. We are all looking for that inner happiness. We can all laugh at jokes of each other. But that's not inner happiness. Inner happiness is really feeling good with yourself, with your life. Stopping and managing the external negative influences to a good extent that it does not disturb your inner peace. That is the ultimate personality. That is the ultimate human that can do that. Unfortunately, we are not all built to manage that so effectively, the external influences. So these tools like meditation, they jump to our aid. So the same thing is happening, that mentally transporting yourself into a painting makes you more relaxed. It slows down your breathing rate. It decreases the levels of stress hormones in the brains. It increases your awareness about the details of the world around you, which means you start noticing things in your environment without judging them too much as good or bad, but just noticing. You start becoming more aware of things around you in your environment. So your mind is getting, your brain is getting to a bit more heightened state in a positive way. Your physical indicators are calm, your physical indicators are stable, your thought processes are calm, your thought processes are stable. You are noticing things around you that you might be ignoring earlier in your normal days. You're feeling the colors better. You are enjoying how you are walking. You are enjoying your simple cup of coffee a bit more that day. You can handle a toxic person around you a bit better because inner happiness is there. Just as a result of your encounter with some piece of art that really drawn you in, some piece of religious activity that draws you in. Most common, of course, example we all know is music these days. That you put on a happy music and your mood gets better. Isn't that amazing how it has this effect and control over us? Now, I was born a Muslim and I'm still a Muslim. I'm not a religious practicing person, but I am a Muslim. But because of my getting this bit of education, I have developed this habit of questioning and trying to understand the logic behind things. So one day I learned that music is not allowed in Islam. In the strict older version of Islam, the conservative version of Islam, music is not allowed. Lots of mullahs and scholars have agreed to that yes, it is true. Music is not allowed in Islam. So I started thinking, why is that so? Then I heard that in Islam, this little sport of chess, you play chess with these horses and kings and queens and these things, very common in the world. I heard that in Islam, chess is not allowed. So I start hearing these little things that this is not allowed, this is not allowed, this is not allowed. And it started raising questions in my mind that music is an art. Why it is not being allowed? Especially if we are having happy music and it makes us happy through all these processes that we are discussing in our brain, why it is not being allowed? So then I understood that the logic behind is that probably its role as putting people into this trance kind of phase. That is the argument here, that because it was identified that music has this strong influence on humans, it can put you in this state of trance, in this state of meditation where you feel out of control maybe. You get so happy, you get so emotional, you get so angry. You get into those states where you are not behaving like a normal you, how you do things in your normal days. So maybe religion is trying to suppress us getting out of that routine, Sohaib. It wants me to keep in that routine, Sohaib, mode. It does not want me to get out of that routine, Sohaib, mode, because then I'm being too independent. I'm being too myself. Then I'm not part of this community following the same rules and same guidelines and same ways of life. And in many religions, if not all of them, the main goal is to put people, societies in order in one guided format. So the society can work as a well-built machine because everybody works in a very and lives in a very similar way. So this freedom is maybe what some religions are not really comfortable with. Sohaib getting out of his comfort zone, out of his routine mode, out of his out of his so-called normal mode of activities and behaviors. Are you guys okay with me so far? Everybody is fine? Hello?
Yep.
Others?
Yes.
Everybody is doing fine? Do I make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Perfect. Now, the first one was that processing emotions. Second point was reducing stress and anxiety. Now, the third process is simply stimulation of brain. Now, something that artists have known all along, that art stimulates the brain. Simple thing that art stimulates the brain, it has been known by artists all along. They always knew when they were doing because it was making them this stimulation for their brain. It was making them alive. Doing art was making them alive. So far we were talking about listening and watching and these kind of things, but now I'm talking about the artists doing art. So they knew that it had this effect of stimulation. They were getting into very, very deep zone where they were feeling vigorated, where they were feeling empowered, where they were feeling liberated, where they were feeling excited and at the height of their emotions. So this stimulated state of doing and submerging yourself into art. Now, artists knew this all along, but science had to catch up on this understanding. So science took a lot of time to realize that, yes, it is true. All these effects of doing art, your excitement, your enlightenment, your empowerment, your getting into this extra stimulated phase. So science has started to also understand that. So the science noticed that when we look at a piece of art, areas of our brain associated with creativity are activated. We tend to breathe more slowly, our pulse rate goes down, and we enter what is called an alpha state. They labeled it as alpha state. This is where it can be easier for us to assess ideas that might otherwise be laying dormant in our minds. We start getting more creative, more ideas start coming to our minds. We start to dig out things in our mind that were kind of hidden and dormant for ages. So we are in that stimulated zone. But then as we know that these artists are not always, nobody is always in that stimulated alpha state. It may be in pauses and pieces and phases and stages. There is maybe suddenly some time of the day that ideas start pouring into your head like nothing. But then maybe there is another time of the same day where your brain just feels dead. No new ideas come. So we have all experienced these phases where our mind works. People even use these things like stimulants like caffeines and teas to aid into these kind of phases. You have noticed how much coffees and cigars some of the artists take? Maybe it helps them in that alpha stage, in that stimulated state of mind. You take part in courses and classes and exams. I know for a fact that if a same student, one of you is given same exam in different times of the day, you will perform differently, even with the very same preparation, just because your mind is working differently in different states. So the science has kind of caught up a bit late to understand this process, that how when all these physical indicators are getting a bit more into the calmer stage, and our mind starts getting into this stimulated alpha state, we start getting creative, we start processing things differently and at higher pace. We can focus better, we can zone in better, we can zoom in better. Something that was a very vague little piece of thought in our other part of the day suddenly becomes something very prominent and clear. Hey, this thing was that. So that state is different for different individuals. The artists that we see as successful artists, so they have this very strong stimulated stage where they can just block everything perhaps from their external world, and they can zone in and focus so much concentration on that one piece in front of them, that one task in front of them, that the results start getting out of the normal human talent zone. It gets beyond that, and we see all these Da Vinci's and Picasso's and all these Angelos and all these huge names, and we start calling them that this person was a genius. This artist came and his art was a considerably significant milestone and very visible milestone in transforming the whole map, whole shape, whole world of art. Before that, art was like this guy introduced and took it to the next level, and we start calling them as geniuses. So geniuses has to have this alpha state, this highly stimulated state where that art itself and their brain are in one sync, in one line, nothing else matters. Fourth point is it releases dopamine. Now, when we view an art that is aesthetically pleasing to us, endorphins are released. It gives us a feeling of pleasure and can even feel like being in love, all because of these, of course, hormones and neurotransmitters. This reaction helps to alleviate depression and anxiety by triggering dopamine production in the brain. Now, dopamine is a neurotransmitter. It is connected to mood regulation. So when we have low levels of it, we tend to feel a bit down. However, when we release more dopamine naturally through things like exercise or being creative, it can have a positive effect on our mood and our mental health. All these mental illnesses and our moods and everything. So of course, the main machine behind is the brain. And these little processes of neurotransmitters, their quantity, quality, functioning, uptake, all their cycles of life, cycles of action. Basically, something is happening there that affects how we behave and think and be creative. Simple as that. So science has given us this explanation in our body, in our cellular, molecular level. This is what happens when you feel depressed. This is what happens. And then the pharmaceutical side has started dealing with these issues exactly based on these explanations, that now we have these citalopram for anxiety acting on serotonins on our brain, keeping the levels of dopamine better. So all these current psychiatry medicine, especially for stress and anxiety and depression, so they all rotate around these explanations from the science, understanding of these physiological processes. So the purpose of telling you all this is that of course we can say that we are feeling this because of getting encountered with art, but then how it is actually happening as a science student. So these are some of the processes that are the mechanisms for making these effects possible, making these influences of art on our brain and mental health possible. So just a quick recap, we started with our title. And I was telling you guys that I chose this title because I felt like I need to understand it myself, because I was a young doctor in a psychiatry ward. And I got to encounter these lovely, very extra cute patients of mine. And I saw how they were interacting with us and how art was such an important outlet for them. We discussed this image. We will talk about it in few minutes more in detail. Now, this image showing a certain interpretation, most of us are seeing it as with a negative vibe, because there is some evil looking characters in this painting. An element of fear, an element of negativity is there. See how the colors are chosen, this certain shade of yellow and red, the features of the characters. So all this symbolism is leaving an effect, an interpretation, an influence, a message behind. Then we went to these four pathways, these four effects, that how viewing art transforms your mental and spiritual well-being, how it is actually happening according to science, physiologically. Are we okay so far? Come on, talk to me, guys. I like you guys. I want to talk to you.
Yes.
Thank you, Christian. I recognize your voice. Okay. So after those things that we just talked, we start to now bring in religion a little bit more in this story, because our topic has this spirituality and religion in it. So now where it comes into play, so we need to understand something from history and something from a bigger level about religions. Now we have heard this phrase that there is a connection between art and spirituality and art and religion. Now the core of all this phrase is that arts have always been integral to religion. Humans have always had this urge to make art. And then on the other hand, they always have this desire to find what is out there. Why are we living these lives? Who are the powers that are controlling our lives? There must be something bigger than us that we cannot understand. So this unknown, this question of the unknown started coming into play. Religions came into shapes. People start finding meanings of these powers and these guidance and these guidelines in the form of religions. And we have seen so many religions and then sects within the religions and so on and so forth. So both of these sides that we humans by nature are creative, and we humans, we ask questions. It's in our nature. So this kind of going along these two things, asking questions and finding answers in the form of religion. So it automatically became a good combination, good cooperation, that art was always a part of, has always been a part of religion. We saw sacred pictures, sacred symbols exist, sacred dances, chants, hymns, tunes, musics, rituals in places of worships. They were always used as kind of an aid to your prayer and meditation in almost every religion. So art was kind of a natural vehicle, natural transport system for connecting us with that transcendent. If you take the great art of medieval times, Christian, whether it was Christian West or whether it was this Orthodox Christian East, both sides have a very strong religious art tradition. For Hinduism and Buddhism, it was the same. Strong component of art in their prayers and meditations and their expressions. But even religions like Judaism and Islam, now there it is interesting because these religions like Islam, it does not allow images, shapes of God and prophets. We have all seen that when there were these large protests when somebody did cartoons or caricatures of Prophet Muhammad. So all the Muslims in the world were so angry because it is a very key concept in our religion that Islam came to nullify, to destroy all the images. That was the whole concept, and now we were seeing something so opposite to that. So we got angry, Muslims got angry. But people forget that even in those religions where these kind of images are strongly forbidden, even they use arts in the form of, for example, these decorative designs to decorate our places of worships, our sacred text. Have you seen how the calligraphy, how the Quran is written in a beautiful calligraphy? It's like a never-ending competition. Who can write better Quran? Who can write better Islamic holy verses? People put it in their houses on the walls. It has become an art on its own, calligraphy. Have you seen the mosques? How beautifully decorated they are. Little pieces of tiles, so geometrically arranged, so symmetrically arranged. So much money and time, but also so much artistry is poured into that. Because again, even if the religion is forbidding that, we humans have this very strong urge to create art. So we have come up with these outlets despite having this forbidding message from the religion. Now, of course, we have societies that are heavily under the influence of religions. We see Taliban in Afghanistan. We see so many other societies in certain parts of Middle East. I'm sure certain parts of Europe, America, Africa, South America, everywhere there are these societies that exist that are a bit more heavily influenced and a bit more into following religion in their daily lives. So there the culture also shapes up under the influence of that religion. So religion becomes kind of an umbrella and the culture becomes heavily under that. So now the culture is also mixed up with these religious influences, and again art in that culture becomes mixed up with art in that religion. So all this triangle become mixed up. So we see countries, for example, Iran, we see this some piece of art. So we don't know, is it because of purely the culture or is it because of purely the religion, because the culture is there under the influence of religion, and so on and so forth. So this distinction between religion and culture is not always very clear cut, that what we are seeing is because of the religion or because of the pure culture. This boundary is very fuzzy. So then art also gets confused, and art also mixes up both religion and culture together. And we see that in all over the world. But then this was the big religions, how they grew up and how they went through times. But then what about the arts in the modern times? This, what we call especially the secular West. For example, we are sitting in Finland, so we foreigners like to think of it as a secular kind of a society. People, we don't think that they are that heavily connected to their religion. So what is happening here to the arts in this modern secular West? And is there a connection with religion still? Is the art also become secular? Now it is true that the center of art has moved a little bit away in modern times from this institutional religions. And we don't see like too strong this mainstream religious art in our modern and postmodern West. The focus has kind of shifted. But yet the connection between art and spirituality has remained even in this secular West. So religion may has taken a step back in the art in this modern West, but spirituality element is still there. Now this brings us to this kind of a two terms connection thing, religion and spirituality. We see this abstract art, for example, we don't usually connect it with any religion. Feels away from the influences of religion. It does not touch religion concept too much. Here I would like to show you something. Now this is called Sufi whirling. I'm sure most of you, if not everybody, have come across this scene. So these people are called Darwish, the dancing dervishes. And whirling means that they are rotating. Sometimes at exact same place, sometimes they move. If they are like a group, so they move in that big circle, but they still rotate on their own and keep moving. So double whirling is happening. But if it is a single dervish performer, so he just stands in his place and he just moves around on his own. Sufis, they are called Sufi or Darwish. And this is more of a spiritual act, spiritual performance. I want to, let's see if I can play this 2 minutes clip for you. Please tell me, I will stop and I will ask you, please tell me if you can hear the voice. Can you hear the YouTube voice?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So let's watch. This is a 3 minutes clip. So let's watch.
We cannot hear the sound.
Yeah.
There is no sound.
No sound.
So everybody got to watch the video and heard the voice?
The sound disappeared, Sohaib, quite early,
Okay.
fortunately.
So
But
I will post this link in the chat. So this is just a basic 2 minutes clip, but the idea is to show you visually that okay, what I'm gonna talk about. So now this is a blend. This is a blend of art, spirituality, and religion. All elements are there in this practice that we just saw. Now this is the area is Turkey, but then this is done by the specific sect called Sufis. Now, this physically active meditation is the process through which they are trying to reach the source of all perfection. Is this the concept of God for them? Is this the concept of that external power that controls all our lives? But they are describing it as the source of all perfection. Is it something that they are seeking for themselves, that they are reaching that level of perfection, that level of peace, that level of calm? So this physical meditation is their tool to make them reach that place or reach that entity in the religion that we sometimes call God. Now this is a customary dance, an art form, but it is a worship ceremony. Now what they are actually doing, they are trying to focus on one target that they want to suppress, they want to abandon, they want to kick out their nafs. The concept of nafs is ego, personal desires. In Arabic, in South Asia, so the concept of nafs is very strong in religions. So you kind of have this ego inside you. So you try to kick it out. And here they are using this meditation, this physically active meditation of this dance, this art form to achieve that. They spin their body in these repetitive circles. And they when you talk to them, they will tell you that why they are in these circles in this specific way. It is a symbolic imitation of planets in the solar system orbiting the sun. So there is this symbolism there, that this movement of there that they are doing. So they are symbolizing it. They are hinting to the movement of all these planets around the sun. And then all these other things in their environment, they also have symbolism, they also have meanings and interpretations. So I was reading that this hat that they are wearing, it represents the tombstone of the ego. So this is tombstone of the ego. So they are burying their ego, their personal wishes. This white shirt that they are wearing, this represents like the ego's shroud. And when they remove this black cloak that they have, so they are spiritually reborning to the truth. So they are kicking out, removing that ego's shroud when they wear and this cloak is spread out. So they are trying to get away from this, get away from their egos, their self-wishes. And in the beginning, what they do is that they hold their arms in a crosswise position. And they are representing number one by that. They are testifying that God is one and God's unity and these concepts. But when they will, their arms are open. The right arm is directed to the sky, ready to receive God's guidance, connection with the God. While left hand, it is towards the earth. And they believe that those who are watching this ceremony, this dance, this meditation, physically active meditation with all this symbolism, so they believe that God's spiritual gift is coming to them. And they revolve from right to left around their heart. They symbolizes it with that they are embracing all the humanity with love. So they are revolving, so they are around their own heart. So this shows that they are thinking that this is their connection, their embrace with the whole humanity, with love, with their heart. Now this practice, Darvesh, these people, they do many times, multiple rituals, which include the same whirling motion, whirling dance. I was reading that in 2005, UNESCO proclaimed this activity, this ceremony, as they called it the masterpieces of oral and intangible heritage of humanity. So it was officially acknowledged that this is something that has this function, and for that community and for the whole human history of arts and meditation and religiousness and spirituality.
So hey, may I comment here just shortly about this dervish dancing? I think this a group of dervish swingers or whirling group was appeared at the Kuopio dance festival some maybe 20 years ago, but they actually performed here maybe in the music center or in theater or even in the marketplace.
But I was myself very unfamiliar before starting to prepare for this lecture about all this symbolism in their performance, especially this, how they are rotating, the meaning that they are rotating around their own heart, their bodies rotating around their heart, and it symbolizes love for the whole humanity. And then how the placement and movement and gestures of their arms and hands, how they have these meanings of connection to God in the skies and to the ground, to the earth. This is fascinating how art is becoming this channel of expressing a certain meaning, a certain belief, a certain connection. And we have definitely seen so many different examples in different parts of the world, in different religions and different sects. And again, just like I was saying in the beginning, that the element of trance is there, the element of getting yourself so deep into these art forms that it kind of closes you from the outside influences in your days, in your life. And on one hand, it is being used as part of the religion, as a religious act itself. But on other hand, as I was early talking, that some religions have actually forbidden this, that they realize that if you get into these trance-inducing art forms like singing or dancing and music in general, it gets you out of that guided and controlled way of life that religion is seeking for you, that religion is advocating for you. Islam, for example, music is forbidden, I was telling. So this role of art and its use for religious purposes is on one hand being very popular and very much adopted and accepted, but in some religions it is being totally disallowed, totally forbidden and illegal and frowned upon. This is interesting to me, at least. This is very interesting how arts are being looked differently by different people and different religions. Now, I want to bring you to the very first picture that we were talking in the first 20 or so minutes of the class. You see, I was telling them that what they feel about this picture. What do you think, Yusi? What do you feel about this picture when you see this picture? What do you think? What do you feel?
First of all, I see some kind of archaic, pretty universal symbolism there. Roughly similar characters overall you might see in different places, but there are certain very special things here. You see, for example, in my mind, from let's say Christian tradition, you might see angel wings out there. You might also see some features of a devil or a warrior mixture of animal and person, and well, what that makes up, I can't.
Yes,
Things.
This is exactly what we are thinking. Yes, somebody else was saying. Yes, this is what we started the lecture with, that this painting, this artwork has a certain vibe to it. There is this symbolism, and many picked us on this devil kind of a feel to that the character and its features, and then we see this character with wings behind, and then there is this smoke coming out from the ground, and some not very human looking shapes and all these features. So it is supposed to have some kind of interpretation which may be the same or different in everybody's mind, but many of us thought that it has a very, very strong, intense kind of a fear-evoking feel to us, this devilish figure and the use of these particular colors. So this kind of image that is interpreting in our mind is leaving a bit negative or very strong and anxiety-prone vibe to it. Now, this is interesting because I bumped into this article, this recent article published inside Finland. Now, there is this hospital that has been closed now, Nikila Hospital. Maybe Jussi knows more about it, but at the moment this was closed, I think, in the year 2000. But it used to be a hospital with strong psychiatry department. So throughout the 20th century, they have lots of regular psychiatric patients, treatments, and rehabilitation processes at this Nikila Hospital.
Yeah, it was one of the large psychiatric hospitals that were built up all over the country. This was in southern Finland, the similar one we had in Siilijärvi Harjamäki Hospital, which is also closed now. Yes.
So exactly. So this was the place, the setting that they were doing this rehabilitation also. So for the psychiatric patients specifically. So what they did was that they gave psychiatric patients painting tools like paints, like brushes, and also some other things like clays and these pottery materials. So they kind of gave this opportunity, these tools to their psychiatric patients, and what their purpose was that these patients, when they started making something, art in their own ways, in their own meanings, so they tried to find meanings in them, and the one core activity was that it became part of the assessment of their treatment, their situation, their health status. So they were trying to also look at the art pieces of the patient and see his state of mind, see his tendencies, and see where the health status has been. And they could compare the timeline of these art pieces to see that has the trend, has the meanings, has the interpretations changing a little bit into specific direction or not. So this was used in a very, very interesting way, that how patients are expressing themselves and what do treatment stands in regard to that. So this was the main purpose behind that. Remember that we are talking about early 20th century or mid 20th century. So in that time, this practice was being done in this hospital, and I'm sure in other hospitals around the world. Now, the interesting thing is that now, after the hospital closed, so all those artworks that these psychiatric patients made, so they were moved out of the hospital building and they are put into Helsinki Museum. I think it's the city museum. So they put there all these art pieces, and there are thousands of these art pieces. Now, what this article author did was that they tried to focus on those art pieces that have some religious themes, and he was surprised to find that about 1/10 of those art pieces, especially the paintings, 1/10 of those were in very serious religious theme. So now there were Virgin Mary with her child, there was Christ carrying the crown of thorns, angels, devils, picture of churches, symbols of evangelists, crosses, anchors, ships and boats, spiritual landscapes, and the list goes on and on in those art pieces. There are numerous motifs and symbols which can be clearly categorized as religious. There are also works where religiousness and spirituality can be interpreted a bit more widely. So this whole theme of religiousness and spirituality was in the background of so many of those artworks of the psychiatric patients. Now, as I said, that in that Nikila hospital, the use of art practice was incorporated as an element of rehabilitation also, starting from as early as 1930s. So they started to use that as a rehabilitation tool. Initially, the patients were given the opportunity to draw, to paint, do pottery. These works were sometimes referred to when the physicians were evaluating the effectiveness of the patient's treatment. The collection was then later taken to Helsinki City Museum, where I think it is still available. Now the whole collection has about 5,000 pieces, paintings, drawings, and other handicrafts, but then about 1/10 of them are seriously associated with religiousness and spirituality. So that's the background we are talking about. Now, this article focused that the aim of this article, this research was to develop the self-understanding of the patients and how they are expressing themselves. Like what did they mean? What did they wanted to convey in these paintings? Now, the problem was that we cannot understand and find these intentions behind the works. We need more information about the artist. But in this case, because they were psychiatric patients, so there was a very strict confidentiality thing going on, which is ethically, of course, very right and should be like that. So there were no names available, no ages available, not even the diagnosis was available. So none of those, even the signatures were kind of scrapped or hidden under paint. So no information about the condition or the artist himself or herself was available. So it was just purely you had to interpret it based on the painting itself. Their date of birth was not available, so we did not know, was it a young, was it an old, gender was not available, man, woman, so we could not use any of that to build up kind of an interpretation of their art. Now, in the background is that this relationship between mental illness and religiousness that we have been discussing in this class specifically. So according to some historians, so this has this certain historical timeline going on, especially if we see from Finnish perspective, is that I was myself surprised to see that how the religiousness was more common in Finnish society during the world wars, before the world wars. So the church was much more significant part of the society. The religion was much more integral part of the society before these World War Is and World War IIs. But then this church was not just a part of society, but it was also often disciplinary role. So it was kind of disciplining the society, and its orders and its guidelines were very serious of nature, and they were implemented very seriously by the people in the society. But it was not very receptive and kind. So this harsh and sometimes bit narrow-minded religiosity, so it starts leaving its mark on the health and of the people in general, and then mentally ill citizens specifically. At the beginning of 20th century, the Finnish Lutheran clergy, Lutheran is the main sect here. So in the beginning of the 20th century, the Finnish Lutheran clergy persisted that it is to preach about the sin, about the hell, about the judgmental God, and all these kind of a very, very forceful nature of concepts in the religion. But it kind of downplayed the therapeutic, the kind version of the religion and the God. This therapeutic role of religion, this Lutheran religion or religion in general in Finland society. So it came kind of after the World War II. So this is very interesting how the religion is moving along these world wars and how his guidelines and its role in the society has gone from being bit harsh to bit softened from this striking fear to therapeutic. So this change in the dimension is happening in the society, and with the background of those world wars. This is very interesting because under this, the art is also shaping up under this change in the dynamic. Now, on other hand, if we see the literature, we find out that this connection between mental illness and art, so this has always been kind of identified. Even still, we know these big geniuses of the world that they were people call them crazies. We even call it in artists, but also in other fields, that somebody who reaches the level of Einstein's and Da Vinci's and Angelo's. So people think of them as that, yes, they were super talented artists or figures in their field, but they were also crazy. So there is always this connection of mental illness with this level of genius. There was a physician by the name of Carl Johan and Ino Miner. So they were in the late 19th century, and and early 20th century. So they were among the first Finnish patients who published autobiographies describing mental illness and life in a psychiatric hospital. So they were the first ones that through their biographies, so they started to connect their own lives from the art point of view, from the psychiatric illness that they noticed they were going through point of view. So they were kind of the pioneering works in this area. Now, in the 19th century, religious care was an essential part of the treatment of these psychiatric patients all over the world. So there was often priests working in hospitals. They were like hired there. It was their job to be as a priest in the hospitals. In Islam, we saw that in Islamic countries, there's often a mullah. So also in jails, we see that there is usually a priest or assessed to a religious leader, a religious preacher, a person. So in psychiatry hospitals, this religious care was also a very key part in the 19th century. But then as the time went on in the 20th century, so its kind of role and importance kind of diminished. I don't think now there is a priest who is hired by a psychiatric hospital, for example, here in Kuopio. They can be assessed, they can be called upon if needed, but not like that much of a strong role as it was a century ago. So I was reading about this nearby town, Lapinlahti, is like 80 kilometers from Kuopio, and for their hospital, I was reading that there was a priest working there in the late 19th century, and he preached on Sundays and offered the comfort of religion through discussions with patients, whoever needed it. So this was like a common occurrence in those times. And this was a kind of a common understanding among the psychiatric doctors also, that religious reflections of some of these mentally ill patients of theirs, they could be understood as symptoms of the illness. Now here is where the story gets interesting. Now, one thought is that, one understanding is that some of these religiousness features in the psychiatric patient are actually symptoms of the disease itself. So he is doing that because of his disease. When I was as a student, 20-year-old student, and they took us first time to visit the psychiatry department of a hospital. So there the teacher brought these real patients in front of us. So we are all sitting in a gathering in a classroom, and now our professor is sitting on the stage and with the psychiatric patient. So there he explained that this patient has hyper-religiousness going on. His everything that he does from morning to night. So he has this religious element to that. And why is that? Because it is part of his psychosis. So that is what actually is making him do that. And I was very surprised that, so the disease is making you hyper-religious? Yes, disease is making you hyper-religious. So if he is on medicine and the disease intensity gets controlled, so his religiousness will get down. That was very interesting concept to me, that sometimes in our societies we see these people who are hyper-religious and we never think that it has a connection. Maybe, maybe not. Is it a symptom of a disease? Maybe, maybe not. It is actually very, very rude to even think in that direction to somebody you encounter in a religious setting. That is it a symptom of a disease, or is it just a normal person who is extra religious? So now the other side, what I just said, a normal person who is extra religious, this extra religiousness of a person, proposes him, prones him to get into mental illness? Does hyper-religiosity is putting you closer to the chances of getting mental illness? Or is it the other way around, that religiousness is a symptom of a disease? Or can it be both? These are certain thoughts that came to my mind during my study period there. And then some practical examples happened there that kind of built this point in my mind. So now these are real life pictures, real life case studies. So we had this patient and he was schizophrenic, and suddenly, so everything is going normal as far as a schizophrenic patient life can be. He is admitted now, and suddenly one day I went to the duty and there was a talk going on. And what was that? Was that patient started displaying some bizarre, hyper-religious things in his behavior. So he somehow realized that in Islam, the number 7 is special because it has been told that there are 7 skies and 7 earths. So his mind got stuck into that. So his bed number was 7. So he immediately started thinking of that in the holy context. So he started assuming that he is somebody special because he has gotten this holy number 7. So he started adopting the role of a preacher and started going to every patient and every nurse and every doctor. So his that religiousness in his behavior started increasing. So what the doctors did, what the professors did, so they incorporated it into their evaluation. So just like I said in this Nikila Hospital case, that the patient's art, patient's expression was being used as part of their mental health assessment. So similarly, I saw firsthand there that yes, the behavior, the expression, that hyper-religiosity of that patient was included in his mental health assessment. So these links are very sorry. So these links are very interesting to me in that context, that psychiatric illness and religiosity, and then using tools of expression like art. So how they are all interlinked with each other. Maybe we know the direction, maybe we don't know exactly direction. Maybe the direction is different between the 3 of them in different patients, which is, I think, the most probable explanation. Back to Nikila Hospital. There was this term that I was reading, and the term was called melancholia religiosa. So this was based on the idea that mental illness can be caused by excessive religious practice. So many psychiatrists saw religious pastoral care as an aid, because the patient is involving religiousness as part of his illness or as contributor, causative element, causative explanation for his mental illness. So then in the treatment also, they started involving these priests, these religious pastors and mullahs and these kind of things. But then some psychiatrists did not believe in that and totally disregarded it as well. And same was from the priest side, that priests disagreed with this and understood the treatment of this kind of disturbed mind. It's not a psychiatric doctor's duty, modern Western medicine duty. So we started getting this extra dimension that now there are priests and religious people who think that the treatment of a mental health situation is not really the job of the Western medicine, and it because the religiousness is part of the mental illness also he is displaying. Priests are also thinking that this is totally their domain. So now we see examples in many conservative religion societies. For example, South Asia, Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, Nepal, that these faith healers are very prominent in the society, and their domain of healing and treatment is very strong, especially under mental health patients. I used to see patients in my clinical practice where we would start by simply taking the history. So how long have you had this illness for? And the family would tell that our brother has this illness for 10 years. So what did you do for the first 10 years before coming to hospital? We took him to that shrine of that saint. They even tied patients with chains at the shrines, or give him under the custody of some religion-based asylum for mental health patients where they were tied up in chains as part of their treatment from religious point of view. And they were given music and dance to get into the trance mode and get into the calmer mode. So I got to encounter with this specific role of music and dance for the mental health patients. Now here, in contrast to these Nikila patients, these patients were not producing this music and dance, but the music and dance was being used to have a certain effect of calm on these patients. So they are sitting there with chains tied up to pillars like animals. And then there is this huge loud music and some people dancing. And it kept going on 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. And I noticed once myself that after around 30 minutes, some of those patients who were tied by chains, they started moving and they started showing the rhythmic movements. They started getting into that trance dance mode. And they started getting so deep into that whole atmosphere. It was a very, very strange sight. But then when I showed you this Sufis, dervishes dancing in the YouTube video, so again, it kind of reminded me of that. Now here is similar kind of a rhythmic dance happening with music in the background. Now here, these people are not psychiatric patients, but in this dance and this trance kind of a activity, they are trying to connect with the God and trying to control their inner wishes and egos. So it is voluntary. But on the other hand, in that saint's shrine, where the music is being used to affect these psychiatric patients to bring them into trance. So two different kind of roles of this music and dance is happening. What do you think about these things? So we talked about the role of these priests as psychiatric healers. We talked about even our modern Western world using priests in their psychiatric hospitals, thus acknowledging the important influence of that. But then the theories that can hyper-religiosity take you towards the risk of developing mental health illness, or the other way around, that mental health illness is having this kind of hyper-religiousness as its symptom. And then these different types of roles of this different art forms, like music and dance used by shrines all over South Asia. It is so common you won't believe it. I think in Health Culture Society 1 course, we were discussing this documentary about this little girl, Kusum. It was a 1-hour documentary and we all watched together, where that Kusum was taken first to a modern Western trained allopathic medical doctor. But then the family took that little girl to this faith healer who referred it to this shrine. And we saw these little girls and guys of all ages in chains, and this huge Bollywood music, which was not even religious as nature, but it had this musical trance component to it. It started affecting those patients, and we saw hundreds of these patients, psychiatric patients in chains, dancing like crazy, just under the influence of that art, music, dance. But then we are seeing these Sufi dervishes who are actually using the same trance coming out of their rhythmic, their calculated movements in the form of dance. And they are actually trying to achieve that voluntarily and intentionally. But their purpose is to connect them with God. Isn't it amazing that intentionally and as a treatment, these art forms are being used to create this trance thing? I don't have an answer. Is it working? Is it not working? Who knows? Any comments on that? Have you ever encountered use of art for these kind of healing practices?
Well, if I may start, Sohaib, shortly, this Sufi example reminded me of another group of Sufi people I met in, well, I was visiting India. That was in West Nizamuddin Muslim community in New Delhi, and they had some different types of practices. And I was following these people when they gathered on a round, sitting in a circle, and they were chanting. It was very meditative, very kind of mystical atmosphere, and I felt that these people also were doing it, of course, for religious mystical purposes, but also for sort of at the same time relaxation and well-being. So there are different types of varieties in Sufi, for example. But overall, I think it's this issue of a role of religious and religion and religious art. I think that will be a very interesting topic to discuss much further. In our society, we do have an important role, like you mentioned, in for example, priests or church workers visiting hospitals. Many people want that. They actually are undergoing Western medical golden standard treatment in our, for example, university hospital, but they still want to see their religious kind of supporters, and there's a certain mechanism. It has been also, there's been some research on that. But of course there is this other side when sort of like religion takes over and it overwhelms you, and that happens also to some extent in our sort of called rational culture. Well, those were my comments.
Very, very, very interesting. I think the event that you were mentioning, that is called Qawwali. So the word in our South Asia for that is Qawwali. So this is again, this developed in Islamic kind of territories. So there the concept was that they sing about God and they sing about the prophet and they sing about these religious themes, but they use not too many of musical instruments, just harmonica and drum, only two instruments they use. But then there is this group of singers that are kind of singing in sync with each other, and they again create the main focus, main aim of that whole performance is to create this kind of a trance kind of a feel. And I have not attended it, but I see it all the time in my everyday YouTube watching time and things like that. So it does create that kind of emotions in your mind about religion and about God. And then if you focus on the audience, if the performer is performing good, if it is considered a renowned one, the one key feature of that is that in the audience, people start getting up, they leave their seats on the ground and they start getting up and they start dancing. And slowly, one by one, like the audience goes crazy and they get so into that performance, just like you see in these rock festivals and pop festivals and different types of music festivals. The difference being that there the theme of religion is in the background and they are all those people who are a bit maybe more inclined toward the religion to come to this kind of performance in the first place. So definitely all these different types of art forms we have discussed singing, we have discussed dancing as a religious ritual. We are seeing then these paintings, that this painting in front of you is another from the collection of those patients, psychiatric patients of the Nikila Hospital, that are very visible, very clear picture of the Jesus Christ with the thorn on his head, and so very clear. Similarly, this is actually a very well done picture. So these are now labeled as psychiatric patients, but they are showing, number one, of course, their talent, but also in our theme today, that they are showing their expression, their connection to Jesus or Christianity as a religion or whatever. So this is now part of their illness, or is it that was existing in them beforehand and psychiatric illness came later? Or is it something that we can associate with the treatment process, their rehabilitation process, that they are using this art form as a way to get under their own control, get control over their mind and the disease part of their mind. So these are all different theories that exist, and maybe all of these are true. It's different for every psychiatric patient. But it's something that we need to start looking at. We should not be just looking at an art piece and just moving along, but we should start looking at the interpretations and how the artist was. So that's why we see nowadays these very detailed biographies in video form on our TVs and our movies also. These biographies of famous artists. I was watching this movie about Van Gogh, and I knew that there was an element of depression there, and as a constant theme behind his paintings. But then the whole story, when you go through these, so it starts making sense that how art started getting into play with the life, and how art started getting into play with the mental illnesses, our normal mental health days. So these are all interconnected. So my job today was to introduce you from these few directions that from the beginning we saw. So we saw these, as a scientist, we needed to, of course, talk about that, how it actually happens on the physiological level. So these four processes I explained to you. Then we talked about these spirituality element and how in different religions, so art has always been an integral part, even in those religions like Islam, where shapes are forbidden, but still if you see the mosques and the artwork there. And then we saw these kind of rituals where art forms like dances and music are being used to achieve that nirvana, or the level of peace and calm and the connection to God. And then we talked about this Nikila Hospital. I have given the link here, so it's 20 pages. So I will ask all of you to please take a look at this. It's a very interesting and easy read also. And similar studies have come from different parts of the world, and they are all pointing to the same kind of observations, that these psychiatric illnesses and psychiatric patients and their connection with the art is something very unique. And who knows, in history, these artists and people that we now know only as names, so what were their life stories and how much of their mental processes and health was playing a role there. So very interesting for me personally, and I hope that this was a first introduction in this theme, and I hope that we will dig out more in our future as well. So,
and Christian had a hand.
Yes, let me a little bit down the PowerPoint so I can see who is there. Okay. Yes, please, Christian.
Hello, sir. Thank you so much. I would say that this is just to say thank you for the lecture. This was really amazing. And personally, I guess I could start my comment or just a thought around this or takeaway points out of the lecture from one of the quotes mentioned by one of the artists in the symposium, who said that art is to value and to reconnect with our very human nature. So I found this really amazing. And coming back to the lecture today, which now goes a step forward and shows like the interconnection between art and spiritual beliefs and our health. And I was actually trying to ask myself a question a few days ago: is there a bad and a good art? And I think that's what makes art amazing, because it's really important in both sides, either of happiness or sadness. And speaking of sadness, this brought me to the picture today. I was trying to think about that picture. What will happen if we can change the colors and probably make it white and or make it kind of like another clear color and put this person like a dread, remove those muscles. I guess the emotions will change. And this again continues with the current practice. Born and raised in a Christian family, one of the things we grown up seeing is the pictures of Jesus, and the most common is the cross. So on the cross, some goes further and draw maybe blood dropping. Others show these horns on the head, like circling the head, the front. Others showing this kind of signs of pain. Another picture I remember growing up seeing is Jesus in the sky with a kind of like light of the sun showing like ability, life after life. And giving an example of the last point mentioned about the role of religion. Personally, I saw my grandmother in her last days. One of the things we still have of her belongings is the picture of Jesus, the big one. There are like two. One is the cross. The other one shows the resurrection and the power of him going back in heaven. And I remember how comfort she was. She was really comfortable, and she was in pain in her last days. Because I remember herself telling us, relax, I'm good, I'm feeling good, even though we could see that physically she's really suffering. And I would say that probably that's the importance of art. She was broken in a broken place, but she was still hopeful. So I guess this kind of like social and mental wellness is what brings in pain. And again, makes us feel good in joy when we are seeing the nice pictures and we are kind of enjoying it in our healthy state. So I really think there's a lot, and it feels good to see health professionals now getting interest in the science beneath art. And I think regardless of the complexities today, it's still a valuable kind of a subject to dig deeper in, because the beauty of it is that it has no role, it has no good or bad side, because it comes personal. As Christopher put it yesterday in the symposium, where he said that art is the simplest expression of meaning to our complex challenges or realities. So humans cannot live in comfort forever, and they cannot live in discomfort. And I think art links both and gives our lives meaning, not only physically, but also socially and mentally. I really appreciate the call. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Christian. Good to hear you, and good to hear your comments and personal experience of your grandmother's last days. So totally 100% you got the essence, you got the meaning that yes, there is no absolutely one answer or explanation to art. But now at least that this theme is getting more into limelight, and academics are getting into that, researchers are getting into that, and hopefully our understanding will kind of increase into connection between art and mental health, and hopefully we will get to see more explanations. But at the moment we have some theories and some physiological processes that can point us to the right explanations, but work is very much still in progress. But hopefully we will see in the coming decades more and more coming out of this field. Also, when you will go to Valamo Monastery, so that is also a perfect place why we choose for this course, because the monastery itself being a religious place, of course, but then inside you will see how the artwork has been displayed, the religious art, the religious icons, and all those things are displayed. So again, that is something for us to observe, that what is the interpretation there, but also then what is the effect of those religious art on each of us individually. We are all such a diverse group of people, not just country and culture based, but also our personalities are very different and our thinking processes are very different based on the different life we have spent previously before coming here. So I would be very interesting to talk to you guys after Valamo, that what did you feel? What did you get out of that religious artwork inside the monastery, and what was the whole feeling like and interpretation according to you? So we will continue this discussion from that angle forward. Any other question or comment, please? I always like to talk to you people because I learn from you guys also. You are from different backgrounds and so much full lives and experiences that I'm sure that there is a lot that you have that you can share, but you need to be a little bit more confident in sharing things with us. My South Asians here. So what I talked about South Asia and those Sufi shrines and saint shrines and how they are kind of taking over. They have already taken over the mental health healing role in our societies. Is that true? Did you come across something similar?
Uh, yes, the shrines, they are taking their roles. There is another aspect to it. Actually, most of the people, whether educated or uneducated, if there is someone ill in their family, they often pledge something to these shrines. Like there's a very big shrine in Lahore, Data Sahib. Like if our family member gets better, then we will give 2 or 3 like dags, the big pots of rice over there, or something like this. This is very common practice.
And also in those shrines, so we're talking from the art side. So I always notice there are these characters and they call them sadhus. So sadhus are kind of beggars. So one side is begging, but other side is that they are constantly dancing, and they are usually under the effect of some drugs, and they just dance. And sometimes they have drums or some music instrument, and everybody who goes to that shrine, so they like to give something in charity to them, because it is considered very religiously good to pay something to these guys, because they are there as servants of that shrine, and they are simply singing, dancing, and playing musical instruments. So but it kind of becomes an activity that catches all these comers and builds a connection with them and brings them into that mood of the shrines. So again, another role of these art forms in the shrines, in the religious settings. Okay, it seems that everybody is okay now. So what I will do is that I will close the recording now. I will upload this video to the Moodle if you want to revise something, or if some of your fellow has missed out on this live session. I will also upload the link of that YouTube video we saw. So if the voice was not clear, you can take a look, or simply by YouTubing Darvesh is Turkey. So you will see many videos of that performance, are also verbal description of that act itself. Also, I will be sharing the link in this PowerPoint of this Nikila Hospital-based Nikila Hospital article that I was quoting, and I took these pictures from. So all copyrights are there of the Helsinki Museum. So everything we talked today is available on Moodle. So now we look forward to the next session, which is going to be the Valamo Symposium. And as you might have noticed already, we have already put up the final program of the symposium. So do remember, the most important thing is for me is that you are there in time in the morning, because the bus will leave at sharp time. So please be in time so we don't leave you behind. And then the bus ride is free, and coffee is gonna be free, and lunch is gonna be free, and they have a fabulous lunch. And of course, the most important, the program itself is very interesting. There will be focus on photographic art, and we have a very esteemed speaker coming. And then we have a presentation and practical workshop element to that as well about dance and health. So we are gonna see different other applications and insights into arts and health. So I look forward to all of you joining. Okay. Thank you very much. I will be closing the session now. Thank you for joining. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Have a nice.
You too. Have a good day, all of you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.